Hello YouTube, it's Sign here with Hobby the Man once again, and today we're going to be doing another manga review. Today we're going to be looking at the next part of One Piece, which should be Wano Part 1. So, you guys already know all the book facts for it. So, what is the premise of this part of the story? It's basically getting to Wano, gathering the crew again, and then preparing the plan. So, there really isn't too much going on, but it's actually a quite a good start to Wano. At this point, I've already caught up. I've already even read up to chapter 1060 because I read the scans. I can't wait. And, well, it's pretty interesting. So, yeah, I think it was a very strong beginning. So, first of all, we get a chapter introduction to Marco. And this first chapter mostly feels like it's still part of Reverie, but it ends up with them getting into Wano. So that's why it's part of Wano. And so they enter through this weird waterfall. Luffy hooks onto some koi fish, and they go up the waterfall, which is awesome. We get to see that Frankie, Usopp, Robin, and Zoro are already in Wano, and they're hiding. They're doing different things. Frankie is Frasuke, Froske, I guess, and he works at a lumber yard. Usopp is a toad oil seller. Robin is a courtesan, because of course. And Zoro, of course, is a samurai. And Luffy and crew enter via the koi waterfall. Then somehow Luffy gets separated from them. The Thousand Sunny ends up with him. And Luffy ends up on the beach. There's nothing there. He then sees this weird standoff between a baboon that's gigantic with a samurai sword and this rock lion, I think it's what it's called. Those fancy I don't know, Japanese lion dog things. And then we get to see this battle of the animals, and then enters Tama, who is being chased by a bunch of bad guys that are riding chocobos or something, and they kind of look like they came out of a Dragon Ball Z, or sorry, not Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball cover for a chapter, the old Toriyama artwork that was just so sci fantasy that it was just so fun and cool to look at. And of course, Luffy saves her, and she feeds him as a congratulation, or as a thanks. Turns out that she doesn't actually have any food, and so she gave Luffy her birthday lunch that she had been saving up for a while. And because she's hungry, she goes and drinks from a poisoned river. And well, shit happens. We get to learn that Tama knows about Ace and that she's sick because of this poison water. And so Luffy takes her into town, and he finds Zoro, who just finished murdering a bunch of samurai with a Sakubu blade, which was given to him because he was caught and said to be a grave robber. And Luffy hugs Zoro's head exclusively. So it's so funny, man. Luffy is crazy. And of course, there's shenanigans. They meet Otoki. No, wait, sorry, what's her name? Okiku, who is I think she's a male, but she identifies as female. Which, whatever, it's no big deal. But I think it's interesting because I remember that she was female, and then suddenly she's like, no, I'm a guy, but I am female. So I thought it was interesting. I don't really care either way, but that revelation kind of threw me for a loop for a second because it was just so offhanded. And, you take it out, it doesn't change anything about the character. But if you put it back in, it also doesn't change anything about the character. So whatever, it doesn't matter. But, it threw me for a loop at the time. And then they go into town, shenanigans. They save Tama because Otsuru, who happens to be Kinemon's wife, gives her a tea that helps her get rid of the poison. And then she's taken by the bad guys. And so Luffy and Zoro and Okiku go to be the bad guys. One of them being this guy with a lion on his groin named Hold'em. And they beat them. Then they go to Odin's castle to meet up with all of the other members of the crew, all of the other members of the alliance. And Law even takes the mickey out of Luffy there and makes Luffy think that Kinemon has died. Then we get a big exposition dump, which was pretty interesting. And we get to learn about time travel in Wano. And it's really interesting because it's only forward facing. And so the woman that did it, Otoki, is Oden's wife, but is also from the Void Century. She died, and of course didn't leave any notes about the Void Century that might have been very important for us to find, right? So it is what it is. There's a quick battle against Kaido, and Luffy gets his shit rocked, man. Like, Luffy just gets baseball batted to the ground, and it's kind of insane. And it was really, really badass, and it shows that Kaido is tough as hell. And it's actually interesting because initially Luffy seems to be beating Kaido because Kaido is drunk. But then something happens, and I think Kaido loses his intoxication when he transforms. And so when he transforms from dragon, which is actually a fish, to Oni, or like whatever humanoid species he is, he loses his intoxication and then rocks Luffy's shit. And it was really good. I really like that fight. So in terms of characters, you have Luffy, Zoro, Hawkins shows up, and it's pretty interesting because he has this weird, crazy, like Kankuro / Sasori of the Red Sand kind of ability where he has a Muppet, sorry, a puppet, not a Muppet. And if you attack the puppet or him lethally, he actually doesn't die because he has the ability to take 10 souls into himself. And so anytime you lethally wound him, you kill one of these souls instead of him. And it's pretty interesting. It's a really badass power. And it sets up something for Wano Part 3, which is really badass as well. So yeah, Law is a pretty good character this time. I don't really care about Law. Like, yes, he's cool. Yes, he has an interesting backstory. Corazon is the best. But like Law himself, I don't really give a shit. So I don't know. He's cool, but the best part that he had in this section of the story is that he messed with Luffy a little bit, and that's all there is to it. Now, Otsuku, Okiku, Momo, Oden, and Toki, and Kinemon all are part of this of the story here too. Hold'em is one of the bad guys. Speed, who they call Horselina, which is hilarious, and I love that Tama has those little millet dumpling things, and she feeds Speed one of them, and now Speed is like her pet. Sorry. And of course, Jack and Kaido. And can I just say, Jack is badass, man. Like, he was badass in Zou, but he's badass here too. Like, holy shit, he's so awesome. And yeah, the only interesting character out of all of the Japanese ones is Okiku, mostly because, you know, the thing where she was a man, but she identifies as female is, like, interesting, like, because, you know, most of the characters that are like this in manga that I've seen, at least, are very, like, flamboyant, and she's very clearly just like, hey, this is just my gender, it is what it is, right? And I thought that was interesting, that was cool. Don't really have, like, any thoughts on it beyond that. I just find it interesting because it's cool, and it kind of is, like, you know, relevant to the modern era, so I quite liked it. And Tama, I actually love Tama. I think she's a great character. I love her so much, and the way that she connects to Luffy and then understands that Luffy is related to Ace without knowing that he's related to Ace, she just sees them in the same light, is like top tier, man. Like, also, Tama just makes me so sad because the poor girl can't eat anything, and the few times that she does, it's because it's her birthday, but her birthday meal is like just rice. And, oh man, Tama is such a good character. I like her so much. Like, she's not really a good character. Like, there's nothing special about her. But, like, kid characters that need help are just, like, great. I really like that. Like, I love Anya, Baby Yoda, Grogu, Tama, and Otoko, and all of the other kid characters that are part of Wano. I quite like them as well. There was another character I was thinking about, but I can't remember them now. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, Tama is probably my favorite Wano character so far. Second is Okiku, and I don't really have an opinion on Otsuru at this point, you know, positive or negative. But yeah, world building wise, the buildings, even the way things are drawn is just slightly different, but in such a meaningful way that it's awesome. I love it. I love how Oda just makes all of the creatures and buildings and everything look just different enough to understand that this is like special, but also still in line with the normal kind of One Piece style, but also provides so much world building. It's just special to this island, and I love that. It's so good. The Tengu guy is interesting. the industrial destruction of Japan is also kind of like relevant to real life, I think. When the Japanese encountered the Europeans during the end of the Edo period into the beginning of like modern Japan, I think that's what happened. And I remember they also like took over the Hokkaido region of Japan, and they, you know, killed off a bunch of native Japanese people there as well. And I find these parallels interesting and very, very meaningful. And yeah, there's just so many Smile users as well. And it's really weird because Smiles are like badly made devil fruits. And so anytime you have a Smile fruit user, 9 times out of 10, it's actually like debilitating instead of like actually helpful. But because they're a double fruit user, they're still stronger than the average person. And it's a really interesting kind of way of going about it. We also learned that Ace was in Wano at some point, which is obviously because he met Tama. And it's interesting. The time travel aspect is good too. And the origins of the city are also really interesting. There's one thing I do have to say about the time travel aspect, and it's that stuff doesn't line up correctly. Because, so first of all, timing in general doesn't line up correctly, because Tama is supposed to be 8 years old, or has just turned 8, but Ace visited her 4 years ago when she was 5. So she should actually be 9, right? And then the other thing is that Toki sent people 20 years into the future, but the 20-year gap hasn't happened yet. So she didn't actually send them 20 years into the future. She sent them 18 years into the future or 19 years into the future, so that they, you know, Kinemon and stuff had the time to go all the way to Punk Hazard, return to Zou, get into trouble at Whole Cake, and then come back to Wano. So I think it's wording issues. It's not actually like the way the story is set up, but it threw me for a loop a little bit. Like, I didn't really understand what was going on. And I don't still understand how this happened. Like, yes, Toki could have just sent them before, but that's not what is said. So why is this happening? Does anyone know? Please let me know down in the comments. I would really appreciate it. In terms of the artwork, it's so fancy looking. It's so cool. It's so Japanese. And it's so well done. Like, Oda just like went fucking ham, man. He just, you know, he was already at 10. He cranked it up to 12 and just like went hard. He like drew everything like crazy. You know the one scene in Death Note where he's writing into the notebook and then he does a flourish? Oda did that with every drawing that he did for Wano. Like, it's insane. It's so good. It looks so awesome. Really, really well done stuff. In terms of fan service, there's a little bit. Who was it with? Probably, I think it was with Nami and Robin, of course. But, you know, it's very mild. At this point, who cares? You're 900 chapters into the story. But it is what it is. In terms of a ranking, this is a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great setup arc, and it was also really visually stunning and pretty funny. I quite enjoyed it. So that's Wano Part 1. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know your thought. And thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.